Hi guys. This is Carly. Some of you already know me. This is my husband, Jason.
Hello.
We are today going to be talking about all of his wonderful theories and ideas for what Stormlight 5 might be. Stormlight Archive, a book series by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah. Should we just get to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Carly asked me to kind of compile this all because I was kind of doing it on my own anyway. And she's like, well, why don't we do a video about it? I was like, okay, well,
So
I guess because I've already gone way down the rabbit hole and I'm going to make this a whole thing. So, I thought where we'd start, stop looking at my notes. I thought where we'd start is with the title. And I know Carly has posted this within the chat group, is knowledge of withheld truth. And I thought that would be a good pattern for the KOWT or KWT, however you want to spell that out. And I think as I run through my theory, you'll see that it should fit together pretty well. The next thing I'd like to cover is when I'm going through the characters, I'm going to really mostly cover the major characters. I'll do little touches on some of the smaller characters. I also tried to build it out much like Brandon does the books. So he has the paragraph. This section is from Dalinar, Shallan, and Kaladin. But then by doing that, I also tried to expound more as I went along, which gets harder and harder because as you get towards the end of the book, it becomes less specific because it all kind of hinges on what's early on. And so without writing the book myself, I got more and more vague as the book goes on. But you'll see kind of overarching arcs for each of the characters. But for the characters, I decided that there are really only 3. And if you guys know of any other ways a character arc can end, I was thinking of a resolution, first of all, change, or death. So either their current arc needs to resolve in some satisfying way, their current arc needs to change, meaning their motivation and everything needs to alter in some way, or the character needs to die, ultimately kind of resolving the arc because the character's not around anymore.
Yep.
All right. So I think we also can agree that Brandon does something that he does a lot in his books. It's always very unexpected. I try to make it fit as much as possible, but I tried to put some twists in there that would be satisfying. Brandon does a talk about making promises in your book, fulfilling those promises, and then if you don't fulfill those promises, you have to do them. You have to break that promise, but in a satisfying way for the character. All right, so that's kind of the stage which I'd like to set. So my next frame is how do I think Brandon will wrap things up? What shocks and surprises us? And so I kind of started with what are the major problems. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to kind of get into the theory itself, and as it flows along, have you guys and my wife naturally react to that, and I can come back and discuss what I think are the major problems that need to be resolved within this next book. Because what we know is that Brandon is writing kind of a 2-set series, the first 5 and the second 5, and that this will be a conclusion to that first 5. So, all right, let's dive in.
Yes. So, fair warning, I don't know anything about what he has written. I know like very little about what he has written in here because he's been trying to save it for this conversation.
We've talked about some of these things, so you might find some notes that are repeated. You're like, oh yeah, we've talked about that, or yeah, it's that. But I've tried to patch it all together and also make it flow nicely, at least for each of the characters. But in general, she doesn't know. So we're just going to talk about it like we normally talk about it, which she's always saying, man, we have such good conversations. We should just record it. So this is us doing that.
It's going to be more of us having a conversation. I hope you guys don't mind. But please feel free to chime in the chat and let us know your thoughts and feelings on any of this, because we're big nerds and you guys are big nerds, so let's nerd out together.
I would love to see where you guys think I'm wrong, so go ahead and comment down below.
Or where he's right.
Or what you think I am right about. Or if you think somewhere in between. You're like, I like this, hate that, but I think it'll go more this way. So let me know what your thoughts are.
Yes.
All right, but so one thing that I didn't have an opportunity to do because Brandon released it before I could is the prologue. We know how the prologue will go.
Yes.
And so
mostly, because I'm sure he's going to edit it a little bit.
And so if you haven't read that, first of all, I don't know why you're here.
Yes. Okay. So also fair warning, full spoilers. Obviously, this is Stormlight 5. So we're going to be talking about anything past into this. That includes all novellas, anything that relates into what may happen in this story. So if you haven't even read the prologue from Brandon has it posted up on his website, brandonsanderson.com. You may want to go read that before you come listen into this, because obviously we're going to be talking about that.
Same goes for the rest of the 4 books. If you haven't read those, major spoilers.
Yeah.
Also, perhaps minor spoilers for the Cosmere. I'll get into some of that as we go along, but I can't promise that I won't spoil some of the Cosmere. So if you're not up to date on the Cosmere and Brandon's books, there may be some spoilers. Just
probably should have started with that.
Maybe. But I haven't gotten into anything yet, so they're fine.
Yeah, you guys will be all right.
Okay, so the prologue. We know how that goes. So I didn't do that. I didn't make that up. We know how that starts. Although we have seen that the prologue tends to be out of character, tends to be from Gavilar's point of view. No. The prologue's not from his point of view. Each one's from a different point of view relating to up to Gavilar's death. Well, that's what I mean. It revolves around
the Gavilar,
the Gavilar murder.
Okay.
So that we get more and more information about what that is and what he actually knows, or the characters
or
around
even,
that.
Like, who he is.
Or who he is, because apparently he's been lying this whole time.
He went from, like, everybody loves this guy to, wow, you're a real jerkwad.
So we know that. We know how the story begins with the prologue, which drops some pretty big knowledge.
Yeah.
But I think, much like Brandon is, he'll drop the prologue at the beginning of the book, and then we're going to jump into part 1, chapter 1, and it's going to have nothing to do, much like the rest of his books, with the prologue. So we're going to have part 1, chapter 1. I'm just calling it the setup. I'm going to do this kind of like a 3-act play. Only I think I have 4 acts in here because I think there needs
have like 4 or 5 parts.
They do, but I think a general story has three acts.
Yeah.
However, this being the end act, I think the last fourth of his book is all going to be wrap up. It's going to be just making sure the characters are where he wants them to be because he's got other books to write.
Well, he's even said like this is going to be kind of, these 5 books will be somewhat self-contained.
Yeah.
Much like how you have Mistborn Era 1 and Mistborn Era 2. Technically, you could read Era 2 without reading Era 1 because they are self-contained in a way. So I agree that he's going to wrap everything up kind of nicely, but not in a way that completely shuts out further stories.
Right. Well, that's what I mean by he's going to put the characters where he wants to, right? Because we even have an idea of what the next 5 books are going to be. People have asked him about it. You can read about it on Words of Brandon and things like that.
Those may change a little bit, but more or less he's probably going to stick to it.
Right. So those characters will be in place to set that next story up, which is supposed to take only 15 years later.
It's still a lot can change.
A lot can change,
especially with the way they're doing with their Fabrial stuff. Like, I could see them being pretty technologically advanced with their magic system.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm excited for that time jump.
So this, though, I'm just calling the setup. This is Act 1, the setup. We're setting up the climax of the story, and I'm saying the major characters for this are going to be Dalinar, Shallan, Seth, and Kaladin. So I think...
Is it Seth or Zeth?
I say Seth. I think it's kind of more of a silent Z, but you can kind of roll it if you want. Okay. Zeth.
I don't listen to the books. He does. He's the audio listener, and I'm the reader, so he can pronounce it. I can spell it.
Yeah, because then the name will pop up and be like, "What's that?" And she has to tell me what she thinks. I'm like, "Oh, you mean this?"
This?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so Dalinar, stop looking at my notes.
Well, I'm okay.
I don't want you to be spoiled. So I think in the beginning we're gonna have Dalinar just kind of fussing over the next 2 days because we have 2 days until the Contest of Champions, which is the big thing that we have been leading up to. Like the Contest of Champions is supposedly gonna decide the fate of Roshar.
And Dalinar.
And Dalinar. Yeah, so I think he's going to be like, what am I supposed to do? We had this go on, we had this go on, we had this go on. So I think he's going to be, we see different moments throughout the last 4 books where he kind of does this whole pacing. So I think it's going to start with him fussing. Maybe Navani's going to be there.
In the way Dalinar fusses.
In the way he fusses, yeah. So he's like, I don't know what to do, but we need to prepare, we need to do something now. But he also got a huge wrench thrown into his problem set at the end of the book, which I haven't seen a lot of talk about. I think we're going to start with Szeth is now in prison for supposedly killing Taravangian. Because nobody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody assumed that the body that was there it was Taravangian's, even though it was Race's.
Well, and Wit had figured it out, but then Teravodia messed with him.
Wit is a special character, plus he never really shares knowledge. So
Yeah.
I take it as a nobody knows because
now
Wit is always
does
an
know
outside.
because Wit doesn't know anymore. Remember, he messed with his breaths and memory.
We don't know what he messed with though, so I'm not counting that.
Well, I mean, if you, okay, whatever.
So, but I think he's going to be in prison for have killed Taravangian, and so I think we're going to have some Brandon dialogue where he's going to drop some important stuff. Just kind of a big diatribe, and in that we're going to learn that they also took Nightblood away from him. So I think Szeth is going to be in prison, isolated. Nightblood is going to be isolated as well. They're like, this is a dangerous item. He used it to kill Taravangian. Why did he use it to kill one of the kings that we've been working with, etc., etc.? Because at that point, Taravangian was kind of, sort of helpful. No one really liked him, but he was kind of helpful.
Yeah, helpful, but still evil.
Yeah. So I think at this point, this is where Dalinar decides to go to Shinovar to meet with Ashar. So Ashar, being one of the Knights Radiance, he is the bondsmith patron of the heralds. Yeah, I said Knight Radiant, didn't I?
He's the herald patron of the Order of Knights Radiant Bondsmiths.
There you go. The proper way of saying that. And I think that's going to be his last-ditch effort to figure out how to restore the Oath Pact. Because at this point, that's what Dalinar's been trying to do.
That seems to be their goal, which, we're going to dive into how much we don't agree with that, but that seems to be what everybody thinks needs to happen. Like, I don't think anybody even has said, we probably shouldn't do that.
Well, we also got the knowledge, and we'll get into it, where Maya, over with Adolin, said that we did this on purpose.
Yeah, we chose this. You can't take this from us.
Right, but we're going to get into that. So at this point, though, Dalinar believes restoring the Oath Pact is what they're supposed to do. Bring back the Knights Radiant. Bring back the Oaths, because that's what we need to do. And I think he wants to do that before the contest. Although he's going to be fussing, he doesn't think he has enough time.
I'm just imagining this big old guy puttering around, walking all fast and stuff. He's folding his arms.
He's going to be pacing, and he's going to be like, what am I supposed to do?
Big old bear of a man.
And he's like, I guess I have to go see Ishar, which I don't think he wants to do. I think he's starting to get a sense that I don't know if I should trust Ishar. And we've talked a little bit about that, so
Well, and I wonder, I'd be a little intimidated by, because Ishar was the brain behind the Oath Pact to begin with. He was considered the wisest of them all. And he's also apparently, a really good fighter anyway. So, this guy's kind of got everything going for him. He's got reputation and skill. And Dalinar's like, crap.
Yes. So, but I also think he's starting to get a sense that perhaps Ashar is not
who he used to be, or
who he used to be, because I think he's going to go with he's a little.
Never meet your heroes.
You never meet your heroes. I think he's going to go with he's a little more. His insanity has drove him to be a person that he's not anymore. However, I think we're going to find that out to be a lie. I think he is the person that he's always been, which I'll get into.
Maybe just a bit more extreme, though. Because,
I don't think so.
I think maybe some of this madness that the heralds have, which I mean, granted, if you've lived for millennia and went through torture for millennia, like, anybody would go nuts. But I think it's maybe taken some of their personalities and just...
Amplified them?
Amplified it, yes. Amplified it, kind of gotten rid of the whatever control they may have had holding back some of that. So he may have been, you know, genius mastermind always, but now he's just an uninhibited genius mastermind, which is something that the Stormfather even says about the Blade. He's an unchained bondsmith because he has the powers of a bondsmith, but he doesn't have any of the repercussions of doing something wrong.
Maybe. I think it's going to lean more towards he's much of the same character. Maybe his insanity will play into it, but I think they're actually going to shy away from that.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be the opening scene. It's Dalinar fussing. He's going to decide to go see Ishar. Szeth is in prison. And I think it's going to be a big kind of meeting where Dalinar's meeting with Navani. Yasna's going to be there. And Wit's going to be hanging out in the background. And I think in that diatribe that Brandon's going to go on his Sander Lanch, Yasna, this is where they're going to start planting the clues that perhaps not everything's okay with Wit. Like, maybe Yasna will pose a question to him, and he doesn't respond in the way he's supposed to respond. And so I think that's where going to be our first clue that not everything's okay with Wit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on. Next character, we're going to see Shallan. So we've opened up with our first problem is Dalinar. We've kind of set the stage for what's going on. Okay. We're going to jump to Shallan's point of view. Stop looking at my notes.
No, honey, this is also a conversation. I think Shallan would be the next person we go to. Because she had a lot of stuff happen.
Well, and I think we have to jump in a specific order. Because you don't want to reveal things too early.
Yeah.
So right now we still want to pose it as... Because Brandon wants to drop the nuggets when it's important, right? He wants to say... Ta-da, here's the answer.
Well, and I think a lot of people are going to be wondering, you know, what is going on with Shallan now, considering where she ended in the last book. One of her personalities is gone, or reabsorbed, or whatever.
They're both gone.
I'm pretty sure it was just one of them.
I think they're both gone. But I wrote this as they're both gone.
Okay, well, anyway, so she's dealing with being herself now, and she's learned more about the Heralds because of Calic, and... that she was supposed to stab him with the Racium blade and all of that. So people are probably like, okay, so last we know, crap happened in your life. So where are you now?
Yeah, so the setup is we're going to visit the major characters and what are you going to do now with the knowledge that Brandon just dropped in the last sections? Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to open up on Shallan. Shallan and Adolin are conversing with Kalek or Ristares, whatever you want to call him. Kalek is his herald name. Ristares is the name he was...
the pseudonym that he chose. ...going
under. And I think here we're going to get a little more information. I think here's where we start picking up pace. Like, real quick. Because I think Brandon, the pace of his books are just boom, boom, boom.
I have a feeling this book is going to be much like the Last Wheel of Time book. The Last Wheel of Time book is nothing but... essentially Sander Lanch's because he's the one who ended up writing it.
Yeah.
But it's nothing but a continual avalanche of what is happening next. And that's going to be this book.
And so I think we get some great info. I think Shallan is conversing with Kalek. Tell me what's going on. Why did you guys break the Oath Pact? And I think this is where perhaps we also see a little bit of drops of Adolin maybe making some more minor progress with Maya. Because we got to see all through the last book, he made a little progress here, a little progress there. So now I think he's going to go from little progress to kind of jumps. Mm-hmm. So he might even make some progress in this chapter.
I don't think he's going to become an Edge Dancer, though. I don't think he's going to become a Knight Radiant. Not in the way that they are known.
Well, if the story goes the way I think they're going to go...
do we get to that later?
We do, kind of.
Okay, so we'll get to that later.
Kind of. So I think what we're going to see is that Adolin's making progress with Maya. Mm-hmm. Shallan is getting some knowledge drops of this is why we broke the Oath Pact. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah.
I think...
even Calic says it himself, that he regrets it.
Yeah. So I think the end of the section is where Kala kind of drops the knowledge, where we shouldn't do this. Doing the Oath Pact was the worst decision we ever made.
I want out.
I even think perhaps it might be tangential, but it might be related. I think he's also going to drop some knowledge about Ba'ado Mishram. And I think if they're not related, the Oath Pact and Ba'ado Mishram, maybe Shallan gets that information from him as well. Where is Ba'ado Mishram? Because we know from the prologue that he is the one who knows where she is sealed. And Shallan's current goal, I got to beat Mraize to Ba'ado Mishram. That's her current goal.
So, like, I've read the synopses on the first 3 books to kind of refresh myself. I'm currently rereading Rhythm of War. And I'm at the point where Vale is ticked off at Mraize because Mraize tricked her into doing stuff. And Vale is like, we don't do that. And so she's all mad. And Shallan's like, oh no. So, I could see... And I know that later on she learns more and more, and then you get Thydakar and all that good stuff, Lord of Scars and whatnot. Which actually that's from the prologue, isn't it? But anyway, like, I could see Shallan doing almost like a, the whole Mass Effect thing where you take down the broker, the Shadow Broker, where she kind of just takes over the Ghostbloods on Roshar. Because she's like, I'm mad. You guys keep tricking me and trying to get me to do things and kill people and whatever. And she's like, no, not having it. The Ghostbloods are mine now.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it'd be cool.
It could be cool, but I have a different path in mind for these characters.
Okay.
But I do think we're going to find out some more truth about Ba'ado Mishram.
Which, that was another... Was that what Kalik was saying he regretted? Or was he saying he regretted the Oath Pact? Or both? I know eventually some of the heralds believed that they should not have contained Mishram, especially because of what happened when they did with the Parshmen.
So when they sealed Mishram, it broke some of the connection that those who are native to Roshar had.
Yeah, she was completely capital C connected to all of the Parsh people.
Which I think is going to tie into the whole story. And I'm going to kind of reveal it here because I don't know where Brandon will drop that knowledge throughout. Perhaps they find it through some of Navani's studying. Perhaps Yasna figures it out. I don't know. But here is where I think we're going to get the first teases of, here's where Ba'ado Mishram is. If you want to beat Mraize to him, there you go. There's your location. Go do it. But we shouldn't have sealed her because of the connection that she had. It broke Roshar. And so I think what we're going to find out is that Mishram wanted to free her people completely. Free them from the Fused. Free them from Odium. Because she actually could provide her own void light to them. And I think here's where Kalik is like, we've only made things worse. We made things worse on Ashen. We made things worse on Roshar. The Oath Pact was a bad idea. Sealing Mishram was a bad idea. We need to die.
We're the bad guys.
We're the bad guys.
Are we on the right side?
Yeah. So I think there's where we get our kind of mission for them. So then becomes the whole setup for the book. The book, I think, is... because he likes to describe his books in different ways. You have the heist book, which is Mistborn. And so I think this book is going to be Race Against Time. There's going to be the ticking clock, right, that we're racing against. Got to get this done before this moment. Got to beat this person to here. It's a race against time. And I think we're going to have the first division of a group here as they decide we got to go back. Well, Adolin's like, we have to go back and tell my father because we know he is singular-minded on restoring the Oath Pact.
Yeah.
But Shallan's going to be like, I need to beat Mraize to Mishram. I have to. And so I think they're going to travel together in Shadesmar. and they're gonna head to the Oath Gate to go back. But when they go through the Oath Gate, they're gonna go their separate ways.
Probably, yeah.
So then, will Adolin get to Dalinar in time?
Depending on where Mishram is, like, Mishram may actually be closer to, like, I don't know, maybe she's over by the Horneater Peaks or something, like, buried there. So, I mean, it would make sense if Shallan was doing that, then she would stay in Shadesmar because distances are foreshortened. So she may stay in Shadesmar to go after Mishram.
Maybe, but I actually think they're both going to go through the Oath Gate together. But I do think they're going to separate. So whether she goes through the Oath Gate or stays in Shadesmar doesn't really matter because they're going to divide. But I have that they stay in Shadesmar together and go through the Oath Gate again for a specific reason.
Okay.
But it could very well change.
Okay.
So once we kind of knowledge drop, here's the problem. Race against time. Shallan's got to go here. Adolin's got to go there. Dalinar's making the bad decision of going to see Ishar. That's where the chapter ends. Seth. So then we go to Seth, and he's in prison.
Poor Seth.
Poor guy. I mean, he was a character who I think is going to be really important, but really kind of hard to figure out. I struggled to figure out what roles he's going to play. So he's in prison,
yep.
And I think he's going to be struggling with who he is, as he kind of has been throughout the entire 4 books. And I think he'll get visits from people. We might see a visit from Kaladin. We might get a visit from Dalinar. But I think ultimately, the person who visits him and has the most connection with him, small c, just, connecting on a personal level, is going to be Lift. We've seen that they had kind of a small connection before, so I think they're going to chat. We might get some reveals of how the story is progressing.
Well, she essentially saved his life, too, because he drew Nightblood and was unable to sheath Nightblood again, and she came over and touched him, so then all of that Stormlight suckiness that Nightblood was doing started pulling it out from her, too. So, I mean, now they both have the gray scars and stuff from Nightblood.
Yeah.
But yeah, she saved his life, so...
So I think they're going to have some more moments, the bonding. So those are your major characters, and I'm going to touch on some of the smaller characters that I think will play larger roles. So you could see this sprinkled out throughout those sections, or they might get sections of their own, because, I mean, the book's probably going to be this thick.
The interludes are going to be a novella in and of their own.
But, so they could very well be their own sections.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to establish where these characters are, because I think they're going to play a larger role, both in this book and in future books. So going to Navani. Navani, I think, is going to be the next kind of viewpoint section. So while Dalinar finally goes, so maybe he visits Szeth and then finally goes, he's like, all right, got to take off to Shinovar, got to go see Ishar. So Dalinar's gone. I think Navani does what Navani does. Is she does more tests. She's been practicing with light. She is now a bondsmith. And
that'll be really interesting to go over when they're not in the heat of battle, because the sibling was like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
And then the only way to save the sibling was to bond. And the sibling's probably still going to be like, I don't want this. I'm not telling you anything. You're not going to make me do anything. So it'll be really interesting to see what their relationship ends up being now that they're not in the middle of a fight for literally the sibling's life.
But I think Navani's kind of a special character.
She's a patron of the arts. I like Navani.
She is nice.
I like her.
I think she fits in a very special way. She's a bondsmith. She's not your typical bondsmith. I think you're right. We're going to get some more kind of explanation of what are her and the Tower Spren, how are they getting along? However, in the time that Dalinar's gone, I think Navani's going to make more progress than Dalinar has in the past, 4 books. Because that's Navani. That's
Navani.
She might take a while to get started, but when she goes, she goes.
She's just really, she knows how to pull together the team and keep things going. Yeah. And she's almost like an MCU person. She's like, I know how to pull together the best actors, the best whatever. She's like, I'm going to make the coolest team of Ardents in the world, and we're just going to make awesome stuff. Because she also, a lot of the stuff is also her own ideas. She's like, I have this idea. She's essentially created a product design team. She's like, here's my product that I want. Now you guys make it happen. And they do. Anyway, I like her. And she's smart in and of her own, too.
Smart,
she figured out how to bond the lights.
Yeah, and so I actually think in this section we might discover more about Light. Mm-hmm. She might even discover more about Gavilar, so tying it maybe into the prologue. Mm-hmm. She might even discover the aluminum box that Gavilar had.
Ooh.
Which is kind of important. Yeah. So I think we might get some more kind of Brandon drops, like this is important, this is important. But it's really going to be focused on Navani and how cool she is and how much progress she has made in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then, as Brandon usually does, drops some knowledge. Woo, aluminum box. Boom, chapter ends.
Because they've already started messing with aluminum a little bit.
Yes.
Which is how they made
the light.
The barge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the barge.
So, like, because with aluminum is how they figured out that they could take, conjoined fabrials and stuff to make it go up, but also the inside is it's the whole. They're really getting into the aluminum thing, which Brandon and his magic systems, holy crap.
They're pretty good.
Mad genius.
Caused me to go down a massive rabbit hole.
Yeah, anyway.
One of the next major characters I think we need is Renarin. I know that he's kind of got his own massive fan base.
Yeah, he's well loved.
But him like Navani, he's different. He's a special character. And I think that's where we're going to start to see is the old passing away and the new kind of... So Navani, Renarin, Adolin, these are different versions of what we've seen before. So
yeah.
Renarin, I think is going to start having conversations with R'Laine. We're going to see that R'Laine is perhaps furthering his conversations with Ja-Anat, because R'Laine's getting along with Ja-Anat, and she's kind of all over the place.
I'm chuckling,
yeah,
sorry.
Why are you laughing?
Because on his notes, R'Laine is not spelled correctly. So it's just another one of those, it's spelled how it's pronounced, but that's not how it's spelled, so I'm getting a good chuckle out of that.
Mind you, neither is dialogue or together. Because as long as I know what it means, it doesn't matter.
I'm pretty sure you put oath patch in there at one point, too.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Anyway.
But I think Ja-Anat's going to be an interesting character that we'll kind of see plays a different role. I don't want to spoil that here yet. But I think it's important to establish that I think R'Laine is having further conversations with Ja-Anat, and that Renarin and R'Laine are getting closer together. They're spending more time together. Maybe opening up a dialogue, because they're kind of like nervous buddies. They'd sit next to each other and be like, "Oh, like hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, I don't like you at all.
No, love note.
They're cute though. I think they're cute.
So maybe they'll start to share some of the struggles. R'Laine might share his struggles and about wanting to go back to the singers, because he had an opportunity to go with Venli, but he didn't. He's like, I need to finish stuff here.
Mm-hmm. But he knows he's not alone anymore.
But he knows he's not alone. Which I think is perhaps going to be some of the communication. He's communicating with Venli. He's communicating with Ja-Anat. So he's trying to keep his communication lines open. And I think that's going to cause R'Laine a lot of problems. He's trying to live in all the worlds. He's like, I want to live in this world. I want to live in that world.
Yeah, I'm a singer, but I'm a radiant, but I'm Bridge 4.
But I'm friends with this person, and I'm in love with Renarin. And so he's going to just be a character who's just torn between worlds.
Yeah.
And I guess I might spoil this here. Brandon likes dualities.
Yes.
He likes to show both sides of things.
Yes.
Because he does the stormtrooper who isn't evil sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So the stormtroopers who work for the Empire.
Oh, you mean like Finn?
Sure, like Finn.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I don't want to be a part of this. We're blowing up planets.
Yeah.
This is bad.
I thought this was just going to be like I thought I was just doing my duty and protecting the people, but I'm killing people.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna see those halves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone might fall to the dark side, but they're gonna be like, this is bad.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we're gonna have between R'lain and Renarin, is because they're both Truth Watchers. And so I think because of their love, because of their connection, because they're both Truth Watchers, I think we're gonna see a split. I think what's gonna hold them together is their feelings for one another, but I think their ideologies are gonna be split. I think they're gonna join different teams, and I'm gonna get into it because it's a part of my theory. But I think they're even gonna start having conflicting visions.
So is R'lain's Spren an enlightened Spren?
It is.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's also just really interesting that
In
an
fact,
enlightened Spren bonded with a human in the first place. So Renarin.
Yeah. I can't remember which one sent which, but one of theirs, so it was either Renarin Spren or R'lain Spren, basically said, "Hey, go bond the other one."
Yeah, no. So Renarin was first, and then
Okay, so then it was Renarin.
He was like,
yeah.
I think it's Gliss is his friend's name.
Oh yeah.
It was like, I have friends who are also enlightened and want this bond, and so R'lain's like, okay, I volunteer as tribute.
I volunteer as tribute.
Oh man, I like that. I like that they ended up in the same order.
Yeah, it's gonna be I think heartbreaking.
Yes. Just let them be happy.
So I think we're gonna finally establish that, have them get closer. Maybe Renarin explains what it is to be a Truth Watcher, because at this point, R'lain doesn't really know.
Well, having an enlightened Spren as their bond makes them a bit different from your traditional Truth Watcher, because I think they're actually doing void binding, not surge binding, because he can't do any of the light weaving stuff that Shallan can, but he can make pretty lights appear.
But that could just be a part of the Truth Watcher, because their surges overlap.
Yeah, but he should be able to make illusions like Shallan, but he can't. Instead, he makes pretty balls of light.
I don't know.
And his visions are also his visions of the future are connected to void binding, not surge binding. Which is weird. Still weird, though, because as a human, having bonded with an enlightened Spren is kind of odd.
Yeah, I think we're going to discover a lot more about that in this book.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
So, next character I think we need to see is Venli. We need to see more of the Parshmans and the Parshendi's point of view, because we don't have enough of them. And Venli is really kind of our only avenue into that point of view.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a lot of Venli in this book. I don't really know how yet, but I think we're going to get a lot of it.
She finally had her words accepted.
That
was fun in the fourth book. So like, these words are not accepted. And you're like, wait, that can happen? And apparently it can.
So I think here, because of where we left her off, she finally found some of her people. I think it was even her mom, wasn't it?
Yes, her mom was still in the group. Because they all managed to get away when Eshonai was planning to kill them all, because they wouldn't take storm form, they wouldn't accept the old gods. They managed to actually get away, and Eshonai was like, yeah, it's okay, I'll get them later. And then they came back from wherever they had been, riding on chasm fiends. Like bosses.
Yeah. So I think here's where we start to see her kind of being more comfortable. She's settled into her role, getting used to being an outsider, but being reintroduced. But I think now that her words are accepted, she's going to be more comfortable doing Stormlight and Voidlight. She's really one of the only characters who we've seen use both. I think she's going to be a key to that as we move on. I think she's actually going to become the leader of her people. Maybe not as it opens up, but maybe later.
Yeah.
And I think this Bren who is looking for other singers to bond, like Timbre, Timber. He will find more, and he will, and we'll find out. So I think in the past section with Relaine and Renarin, we're going to find out he's communicating with Ja-Nat. So I think in the Venli sections, we're going to find that he is also communicating with Venli because they have like the span read that they could communicate back and forth with. So I think in this section is where we'll find that out. But I think we're probably going to have those back to back. So I don't think that's going to be, terribly confusing. Let's see, where was I? All right.
Should we go over one of our fan arts though?
Sure.
Okay. So, we decided I decided. We decided that we were going to both look for pieces of fan art of 3 of the main characters to see just to kind of show them off, be like, these are our favorites, this is why. I've seen his because I had to find them.
Well,
but he hasn't seen mine, so we're gonna see.
We often comment on art. We're like, "Oh wow, this is really nice," or "That's not how I pictured this person,"
or maybe just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Would be exactly right.
So we decided, fan art doesn't get enough love.
Yes.
In fact, fan artists often get screwed.
Yeah.
So we wanted to showcase some of the fan art that we thought was some of the best. There's other ones that we enjoy a lot. Like we enjoy Michael Whelan a lot. Yeah. We enjoy Adam.
You mean Isaac Stewart?
Isaac Stewart. Yeah. I can't remember anybody's name.
Adam, we like you too.
Adam, we like you too.
So we thought we would just share some of our favorites that we have found. Obviously, there's thousands more that are just as beautiful and well done, but these are some that we feel like actually personify what we see these characters to be. So starting off, this is Jason's favorite Dalinar piece of art. I also love it. Naturally, he picked it, so I couldn't pick it.
So I'll explain why I like it, though. I like it because I always imagine Dalinar. I know he's described as clean-shaven. I know that's how...
I don't think we're alone, though, honey.
Adam? No, what did I just get it wrong?
Isaac?
I don't know why I can't get that straight. I know Isaac drew him with a clean-shaven face. In fact, I think we have it over there. I don't like it.
The manly beard.
I think he needs a little bit of scruff. Even if it's super short, like he just shaved 5 o'clock shadow, something. And,
as you can see.
Well, I just can't grow hair. That's a different thing. I would actually prefer to be clean-shaven. But that's not how I imagine him in my head. I know that's how he's described. I just don't like it.
I think it's because that's what we're used to from every other fantasy thing.
Perhaps.
Is ye olden times.
Ye olden scruffy man.
Is bearded.
Yeah. But I liked it. I liked how Navani was shown. I like how Dalinar was shown. He is the right size.
Beefy.
Yeah, just intimidating.
Yeah. He just looks strong.
Yeah, so this is my pick for Dalinar, and this was by who?
Hacko1.
Hacko1.
HACO, the number 1, on DeviantArt. We'll share these links directly in the description below as well after this stream is done.
I just think he did a phenomenal job.
I like how beautiful and regal Navani is though too, and yeah. He's so stoic, but he the way Navani herself describes him is just a force. You look at this guy and you're like, oh, I ain't messing with that.
Yeah. And I get that from this picture. So
it's also just a beautiful drawing.
Yeah. So well done. I really appreciate it. This is one of my favorite depictions because this is more how I picture him in my head of Dalinar.
And a little bit gray, but distinguished.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to Carly's Dalinar.
I really like this one. This is his Blackthorn, though. And I 100% agree with this.
Who does this one?
This is by Randy Vargas.
I don't know who that is, but I know I've seen this.
Yes. If you look up Dalinar, this is one of the first images that will show up in Google search.
Yeah.
Randy Vargas on ArtStation did this piece, and this is titled Blackthorn. I love the change of knowing where Dalinar was to where he is now, because it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes, which is, "A hypocrite is just a man in the middle of change." But I love this piece. It's so intimidating as well, but in a different, more menacing way, as opposed to the one that Jason shared. Like, this is just, you would run for your life if you saw this man coming for you with his sword.
I do think it's very beautiful, very nice. I like the storm in the background. I like the sword in mid-appearance.
The touches of purple.
The touches of purple, because purple means evil.
Yeah. Apparently purple is now evil as opposed to royal.
So yeah, I think it's a good one. I imagined him with more scruff.
Yeah. Again, that's just because I when I think of like an older distinguished man, I think of a beard. I don't know why, but for this being a more canon piece of art, him being clean shaven, but you get to see like his scars and everything. I don't know. This is just a menacing piece. In the angle, he is looking down at you, you worm. You are beneath him.
Yeah. It's a good one. I really like it.
All right.
Well, we're gonna come back. We'll do a few more pieces of some major characters that we liked. But we'll go back to part 1, and the last part of part 1, which is actually blank, because I didn't fill it in, because I actually feel like it doesn't matter, and all of you are going to hate me for this, is Kaladin. Kaladin, I think the part 1 ends with where Kaladin is, because we left Kaladin in a place where he was probably about as good as he's been in a long time.
He's essentially getting therapy.
But he finally had
and it's great.
He made his most recent oath, the 4th ideal.
Which was awesome.
And so I think Kaladin's actually in a good place, which is bad. Because if you're in a good place, then you got to mess it up again for the rest of the book. I'm okay with that, but I think we're actually going to mostly leave Kaladin alone. But here's where I think Kaladin fits in. I think Kaladin fits in with Szeth being in prison. Kaladin now accompanies Dalinar to Shinovar to meet Ishar. So now we're kind of bringing this whole section full circle, which I think is important to kind of remind you, this is where we left off. This is the problem, is Kaladin's going with Dalinar to Shinovar. But since we've already gone through all that stuff, maybe this takes place with them at Shinovar. So Dalinar is thanking Kaladin, thank you for coming with me to Shinovar. You know, I needed another bodyguard, and the last time we met with Ishar, he spanked us pretty good.
Yep.
So I needed somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yep.
So I think it's Kaladin, Dalinar, and maybe Lift. But since I already said that I think Lift stays and kind of talks to Szeth, I think another Knight Radiant might go with them. I think it'll be 3, because he does groups of 3. I think he likes that. I think it makes it well balanced. I just don't know who it would be. But that's the role that I have for Kaladin in the beginning. I think Kaladin is traveling with Dalinar as they're discussing the Contest of Champions and how they want to restore the Oath Pact. And so they're on their way to Shinovar. And so perhaps part 1 ends with bum, bum, bum. Ishar shows up. And so you got Ishar meeting with Dalinar. So we have the thing where we're like, but Shallan and them haven't even left yet. So I think it's going to give us a little bit of heart palpitations, a little worry. That's where I think part 1 leads off. Any thoughts on part 1 so far?
Part 1 so far.
I don't think it'll shock anybody. I think it's all pretty, because I think that's what you have to do at the beginning of a book, is establish where everybody's at, which is basically just the end of the last book, right?
Yeah, because you can't do a time skip.
Only move it forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
the end of the day. That's how far forward it moved.
Exactly. It's just the end of the day. So I don't think part 1's going to shock anyone. There might be a few things that you don't agree with, but you'll see why I did that as we move forward. Because I think it's important for the character arcs that I think these characters are going to go on. We'll see how much I'm right about.
I think I pretty much put in everything that I had to say about it in the because it's a discussion. But here's the question: is we're at 50 minutes, and we're only through part 1. I think we should do these as parters. maybe we can do part 2 later today. It's already 11.
Okay, well we can end then.
Okay.
You're gonna have to cut this part out.
No, they don't care. Well, anywho, if you've been watching, thank you. And if you're coming in later and watching this after it's been posted up, also thank you. Please make sure to like this video or thumbs down it, I guess if you really just don't like us that much. Subscribe to the channel if you please.
And come back for part 2 and part 3 and 4 because I think you're going to be shocked by some of the decisions I made.
This may be like many, many parts.
No, it won't be that many parts.
Yeah.